In this first example, we have a student that purchases a single user license to a copyrighted application. It's important to note this is a single user license. The student wants to know whether it's possible for other students to use that application at the same time, and under which of the conditions below it's acceptable for this to happen. Now, the only thing that we need to know about licenses in this situation, and this applies to any example like this one, is that if you want to use something that is copyrighted by somebody else, you need to get permission from them. That is all there is to this topic. If you own something, somebody else needs your permission in order to use it. The other thing to note here is digital content that you create is owned by you. If you create some digital content, by default, you own that content. So others need permission to use that content. This example is asking about the entertainment business and the fact that it's much easier to share and purchase new music. This is because the music is digital, which makes it easier to share. So therefore, we are wondering about ethical or just general concerns related to digital music. As with before, this issue is generally this concept right here, where in order to share the music, you need the author or owner's permission. And it's really as simple as that. If somebody owns something like music, somebody owns a digital asset such as a song or art, you just need their permission in order to use it. This is also going to talk a little bit about Creative Commons licensing. And this one says here, for example, artists are adding their music to streaming services with Creative Commons licensing. That's not what the issue is with Creative Commons. Creative Commons is just a way to make your works available for free to others. We'll talk more about that one in another example. This question directly asks about the impact of the Creative Commons license. In fact, the answer to this one is actually pretty much the definition of the Creative Commons license. Creative Commons license is a special license. This describes exactly what it does, which is it gives a creator of some digital content, such as digital art or music that you have created, the ability to decide how others can use their work legally and also to distribute their work legally, so that something that you created and you want to share for free or for cheap is easily and unambiguously available for others to consume. And this in turn enables broad access to that type of digital information, be it art, code, music, etc. Now, C and D here are clearly just nonsense answers. It has nothing to do with lossless transmission. That's a compression issue. Private transmission has to do with data privacy or security, and that has nothing to do with this question. Now, the reason this question is actually kind of tricky is because answer B actually looks very, very close to being correct. Answer B is saying Creative Commons gives internet users the right to legally use and distribute any previously copyrighted work, enabling broad access to digital information. Everything about this sounds correct except one small little thing. And that small little thing is this word right here. It says to distribute any previously copyrighted work. The Creative Commons only allows internet users the right to use and distribute work which the creator of that content has specifically granted rights to. It's not just a blanket type of copyright that allows you to use any copyrighted work. It is only work that has specifically been granted such permissions by the owner and creator of that work. This question is a broader question about various ethical concerns related to various licenses or types of copyrights or types of data access. The first one is going to talk about open access. Open access is the concept where things like scientific journals or research can make their research findings or other parts of the research accessible to others for free in a legal way. So this allows others to be able to access information about this research paper. So this is not a legal concern right here because open access does allow others to access this data. The second one here is talking about open source. Open source is very similar, but it talks more about software. Open source software is software that makes the code available to others for use freely. This means that you can take all of that software, copy it, and make your own version of it, although you do need to provide attribution. You need to make sure that you credit the other ones for the original. However, it's totally legal for you to add several features to open source software. It is made available to you for that reason. In fact, it is quite common for that to happen. That's the whole purpose of open source. Let's skip to part D here. D says, a public interest group alerted people to a scam that involves charging them for a program that is available for free under a Creative Commons license. This is actually kind of tricky. This is not the answer. And the reason for that is actually because if you made the thing available through a Creative Commons license, you could have specified that they can sell or do whatever they want with it. You can imagine creating something like an image or something and just letting people do whatever they want with it. And if they want to charge for it, that's up to them, especially if they attributed it to you and they actually gave you credit. Now, the one that's actually the correct answer here is this third one. A musician creates a song using samples of copyrighted work and then uses a Creative Commons license to publish the song. Just because you use a Creative Commons license doesn't mean you can just use a sample of copyrighted work. So by using samples of copyrighted work, this actually becomes a problem. So what this means is that it's not enough to use the Creative Commons license to grant recognition for the use of somebody's copyrighted work. You actually need their permission. This is not what the Creative Commons license is for. Creative Commons is for you to give other people free or cheap access to something that you've produced legally. As before, if you're using somebody's copyrighted work, you still need to get their permission. All right, let's do another one about Creative Commons. So here, this one's asking, all right, so you want to use a Creative Commons license. So which of the following describes a benefit of using this? Now let's go straight to the answer here. The answer here is also basically, once again, the definition of the Creative Commons license. So here the answer is D, which is programmer can specify the ways that other people are legally allowed to use and distribute the software. That's what this license is for. You get to say how people can use and distribute the software that you've made, or any other digital thing that you've made. Now let's look at some of these other ones and see why they're wrong. The first one says, programmer can ensure that the algorithms used by the software are free from bias. Of course, there's no reason that the Creative Commons license guarantees that. Programmer can ensure that the source code is backed up for archival purposes. That doesn't also make any sense at all. Nothing about the Creative Commons guarantees that this software is going to be archived. Finally, the programmer can include code that was written by other people in the software without needing to obtain permission. Once again, if you're using something that is owned by somebody else, you have to have permission. That's just how it is. You need their permission. Now this question is about open source software. This one's asking which one of these is not an advantage of open source software. So just as an overview, open source allows you to share code or to use shared code. You can make any modifications that you want to it, to your own copy. The basis of open source is that it really is generally available for free. This is correct. So it can also be cheaper, which means they can actually charge for it, but it's generally free or lower in cost than something you might buy commercially. That's true. The ability of source code makes it possible to customize open source software to a user's individual needs. So yeah, it is possible to customize open source software. That's one of the benefits of open source software. Let's skip to D here. It says, unlike commercial software, which can become obsolete when the company that created it goes out of business, open source software can be updated without the involvement of the original programmers. So this is very much true. If you have some open source software that you found on the internet, you are free to change it and update it, even if the original programmer is, for whatever reason, no longer working on that code. It is now yours to do whatever you want. That's what makes it open source. That leaves C as the correct answer for this. It's the one that's not an advantage. It's actually kind of obvious if you read it. It says, the original developer of open source software provides free or low-cost support for users installing and running the software. There's no guarantee or any reason why the original developer is required to provide free or low cost or even any support for anyone that's using the software. Open source pretty much just means that the software is available for whoever wants to use it, but it's up to them to figure out how to do that, right? Imagine if I made software available for free and suddenly I'm required to support anyone who wants to use it. That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Thanks for watching. I'm Flavio, and I'll be back with more soon.